Something is building behind the scenes, and you can feel it even if no one is saying it out loud. There's a pause that doesn't feel natural, like someone stopped mid-action, mid-sentence, mid-truth, and now everything is hanging in the air waiting to drop. Whoever this is, they're not as certain as they once were, but they're not walking away either. The energy coming in feels scattered, almost frantic under the surface. That knight on the charging horse, flipped upside down, tells me someone rushed in too quickly, or wanted to, and now they're hesitating, second-guessing every move. It's like their confidence cracked at the last second. Words may have been held back, or maybe said in the wrong way, and now there's this restless tension. Like they don't know how to fix what they started. And then there's this shift into reflection, almost regret. That image of someone standing in the rain with swords left behind it feels heavy, like the realization of, was it worth it? Someone here is replaying everything quietly. The conflict, the distance, the way things unfolded. It's not sitting right anymore. Pride is softening. But instead of speaking up, they're stuck in their head going over it again and again. But what's really underneath all of this? It's deeper than they're willing to admit. The High Priestess reversed that quiet figure on the crescent moon suggests there's something being suppressed. Intuition ignored, emotions, hidden truth avoided. Someone knows exactly what they feel. They just don't want to face it yet. It's not confusion, it's avoidance. And that's why this shift feels so intense. Because whatever's been pushed down is starting to rise. And now, something starts to loosen. Not all at once, not in some dramatic outward way, but internally there's a shift that can't be undone. That image of the bound figure among the swords turned upside down. It feels like the moment someone realizes the cage was never fully locked. This is where the pressure builds. Because up until now someone could pretend they didn't see it, didn't feel it, didn't know what was really going on beneath everything. But that slipping, the mental loops, the overthinking, the quiet avoidance, it's starting to crack. And once that awareness hits, it doesn't come gently. It comes fast, like a flood of clarity they weren't ready for. There's a sense of someone trying to hold it together, but their own thoughts are turning on them. What they avoided is now the only thing they can focus on. It's like they're standing in that circle of swords, realizing the way out has always been there. But stepping out means facing everything they've been suppressing. And this is where the shift really begins. Because once that internal barrier breaks, there's no going back to pretending. No more silence that feels safe. No more distance that feels controlled. This truth, it's getting closer, sharper, harder to ignore. And it's about to demand a decision. This pressure doesn't stay contained for long. It starts to show in how they act, how they react, how they defend themselves. You may notice a shift where someone suddenly becomes guarded, almost like they're bracing, holding their ground with everything they have. Like lifting those wands overhead, trying to block something from getting too close. But at the same time, there's this undercurrent of instability. Like standing on uneven ground trying to keep control, while something inside is slipping. What begins to surface here is resistance. Not because they don't feel it, but because now they do, and it's overwhelming. There's a sense of someone pushing back, getting defensive, maybe even creating tension, where there wasn't any before. All because facing the truth feels like losing control. And that's the part they're not ready for. They'd rather fight the situation than surrender to what they already know deep down. There's also something deeper being revealed about their behavior. This isn't just about you or even the situation itself. It's about their fear of vulnerability, their instinct to protect themselves at all costs. When the truth comes in this fast, it shakes their sense of stability. So instead of opening up, they tighten their grip, they resist, they hold their position, even if it exhausts them. But here's the thing. This kind of resistance doesn't stop the shift. It only intensifies it. Because the more they try to hold everything together, the more obvious it becomes that something is already falling apart internally. And that tension, it's leading somewhere. There's something here that wants to be seen more clearly. Tell me something about that rushed, unstable energy. What's really happening behind it? Because it looks like hesitation. It looks like someone pulling back, losing direction. But underneath, it's not just confusion. It's avoidance that's starting to unravel. This isn't just about moving too fast and then stopping. It's about what they were trying not to deal with in the first place. And this is where it becomes more specific. There's a sense of someone trying to manage the situation quietly. Like reaching for something without being noticed. Keeping certain thoughts, certain truths just out of reach. Almost like if I don't fully look at it, I don't have to face it. But that's slipping now. What was hidden in their own mind, the things they didn't say, didn't admit, didn't even fully process, it's starting to surface. Not in a loud way, not yet. But internally there's this awareness creeping in. You may even recognize this pattern in yourself. When you avoid something long enough that it starts showing up in other ways. In your reactions, in your mood, in how you pull back or overthink. It's not random. This energy shows someone who thought they could stay ahead of the truth, but now it's catching up. Quietly, steadily, like something being uncovered piece by piece. And that restless feeling from before, it makes more sense now. Because it was never just about what happened. It was about what wasn't being faced. And now, that's exactly what's starting to come into view. There's something quieter underneath that sense of reflection. Almost like a pause that doesn't fully resolve. What is really going on behind that attempt to move on? To release the past? Because it looks like acceptance. It looks like someone trying to come out of regret. But underneath, there's still a part of you that hasn't decided what this actually means. This isn't just about letting go. It's about the moment right before a decision, where you can feel the truth, but you're not fully ready to choose it. And this is where it becomes more specific. There's a kind of stillness here, like sitting with your back turned a sword in the ground. Not fighting anymore, but not moving forward either. You might recognize this as that space where you stop replaying the past. But you haven't yet replaced it with clarity. It's that in-between, where part of you knows something has changed. Something can't go back to how it was, but another part is holding on to uncertainty. Almost like if I don't fully decide, I don't have to feel the full weight of it. You may notice this in yourself in small ways. Avoiding a final conversation. Sitting with a feeling but not naming it. Sensing the shift, but hesitating to act on it. It's not confusion. It's the awareness of truth, without full acceptance yet. And that's why this feels so intense. Because the truth isn't hidden anymore. It's right there in front of you. You can feel it. You just haven't fully turned toward it yet. And that space, right before you do, that's where everything begins to change. There's something restless underneath that silence, like it's not as calm as it looks. What is this really showing us about that blocked intuition? That feeling you've been pushing down? Because it seems like quiet avoidance, like not wanting to look too closely. But underneath there's movement. There's urgency. It just doesn't know where to go. This isn't just about ignoring your inner voice. It's about what happens when you do feel it, but you don't trust yourself enough to follow it. And this is where it becomes more specific. There's a sense of being pulled in two directions, like those opposing forces dragging the chariot. Part of you wanting to face the truth, and another part trying to stay where things feel familiar, even if they're not right. You might notice this in how you move through your day. Starting to make a decision, then stopping, feeling something strongly, then questioning it, almost taking action, then pulling back at the last second. It looks like hesitation, but underneath it's a lack of alignment. Your intuition is speaking. It's actually very clear. But your mind is trying to control the outcome, trying to steer, trying to make it safer, more predictable. And that's where the tension builds. Because the more you override what you feel, the more scattered everything becomes. Direction gets lost, energy gets split. This isn't confusion, it's knowing, without allowing yourself to fully move with it. And that's why this shift feels like it won't be gentle. Because the longer that inner voice is held back, the stronger the push becomes. Until something finally forces movement, whether you feel ready or not. And that's the part that's just starting to surface now. There's something delicate in that moment of breaking free. But it's not as steady as it seems. What is this actually showing us about that release? That moment where you realize you're no longer stuck. Because it feels like freedom. It feels like stepping out of that mental loop. But underneath, there's imbalance. There's a kind of emotional overflow that hasn't settled yet. This isn't just about getting out. It's about what happens after, when everything you've been holding back starts moving all at once. And this is where it becomes more specific. There's a sense of trying to regain control, like pouring from one cup to another, but the flow isn't even. One moment you feel clear, certain, ready, and the next it all feels too much again. You might notice this in how quickly your emotions shift. Feeling strong, then suddenly overwhelmed. Thinking you've let something go, then finding it still affecting you. Trying to stay balanced, but something keeps tipping you off center. It looks like inconsistency, but underneath it's release without integration. You've opened something, you've allowed a truth to come through, but your system hasn't fully caught up with it yet. And that's where the discomfort comes in. Because part of you wants to stabilize, to make sense of it, to bring it back into balance. But another part is still processing everything that just surfaced. This isn't a step backward. It's what happens when you finally stop holding everything in. And now, you're learning how to hold it differently. There's something in that resistance to surrender. It doesn't come from nowhere. What is this actually showing us about that stuck, suspended feeling? That unwillingness to fully let go or see things differently, because it looks like impatience, like you just want to move forward already. But underneath, there's a deeper frustration. A quiet question of, was any of this worth it? This isn't just about being stuck. It's about the weight of everything you've already invested. And this is where it becomes more specific. There's a sense of looking at what you've built, what you've put time, energy, emotion into. Like holding something in your hands and realizing it's not giving back what you expected. Almost like examining a cluster of fruit, but feeling disconnected from it. You might recognize this as that moment where you pause and think, I've given so much to this. I waited. I tried. I stayed longer than I should have. And now the idea of letting go doesn't just feel like release. It feels like loss. That's why the perspective hasn't fully shifted yet. Because seeing things differently would mean accepting that something didn't grow the way you hoped it would. It's not denial. It's attachment to the effort. And that's a hard truth to sit with. Because it asks you to separate your worth from the outcome. To realize that just because you invested deeply doesn't mean it was meant to continue in the way you imagined. And that's where this becomes real. Because the shift isn't just emotional. It's about how you value what you've been holding on to. And whether you're ready to see it clearly, even if that clarity changes everything. There's a quiet recalibration happening here. Almost like your hands instinctively adjusting the weight of something you've been carrying for too long, noticing where it no longer feels balanced. It doesn't come as a dramatic decision, more like a subtle awareness of what feels fair, what feels mutual, what actually gives something back to you. You may find yourself pausing in moments where you would have kept giving before hesitating just slightly, like weighing something in your palm before offering it. And that hesitation matters, because it's the first sign that you're no longer operating from obligation or emotional investment alone. You're starting to notice the exchange, where energy flows and where it doesn't. This could show up in small ways, pulling your attention back, saying less, observing more. Almost like stepping half a pace back to see things clearly. It's not cold or detached, it's aware. And underneath that awareness, there's a gentle but undeniable shift in how you value yourself within this situation. You're no longer just asking, was it worth it? You're beginning to ask, is it still worth it now? And that question changes everything, even if you haven't fully answered it yet. There's a deeper recognition settling in now, not just about what feels uneven, but about what has already ended within you, even if it hasn't been spoken out loud. It's like something quietly closing its grip, like a weight you've been carrying suddenly feels heavier because you're no longer unconsciously holding it the same way. You start noticing how certain things don't land the way they used to, how your reactions shift without you forcing them to. Where you once leaned in, there's now a pause. Where you once explained or justified, there's a stillness instead. It's subtle, but it's consistent. And that consistency is what makes it harder to ignore. This isn't a passing feeling. It's something solidifying. You may even feel a kind of emotional finality creeping in. Not dramatic, not loud, just present. Like something being set down quietly after a long time. The part of you that kept things going is starting to loosen its hold, not out of anger, but out of clarity. And that clarity carries a certain weight, because once you feel it, you can't unfeel it. It begins to shape how you show up, how much you give what you're willing to carry, and what you're no longer able to pretend still fits. Something in this is becoming unmistakable now. Not in a loud way, but in the way everything you once held together starts to feel like it's shifting out of alignment on its own. It's like watching something you've relied on begin to crack under its own weight. Not suddenly, but enough that you can't pretend it's still stable. You may feel it in moments where your usual responses don't come naturally anymore, where the effort it takes to maintain things feels heavier than the connection itself. There's a quiet awareness that what you are holding on to isn't holding in the same way, like the structure itself has already started to give, even if nothing has fully collapsed yet. And that realization doesn't feel dramatic, it feels inevitable. You might catch yourself stepping back internally, not out of fear, but because something in you recognizes that things can't continue as they were. It's not about forcing change. It's about noticing that change is already happening, like pieces slowly shifting out of place. The clarity you've been resisting is no longer abstract. It's becoming something you can feel in real time. Something that gently, but persistently reshapes how you see everything moving forward. There's a quiet sense of emotional grounding starting to take hold. Like something within you finding its center after all that inner shifting. Even if everything around it still feels uncertain, it's not about everything being resolved. It's more like your awareness has settled into something you can actually feel and recognize, like holding something steady in your hands after it's been moving for so long. You may notice how your emotional responses begin to feel more contained, more intentional. Not because you're forcing control, but because you understand what's real for you now. What once felt confusing or overwhelming starts to organize itself into something clearer, almost like an inner knowing that doesn't need to be explained. There's a sense of emotional truth sitting quietly beneath the surface, like something filling up from within, no longer dependent on what's happening externally. And that changes how you show up without you even trying. You give differently. You receive differently. You respond with more awareness of what actually resonates with you. It's subtle, but it's steady. Like something inside you has found a point of balance that doesn't shift as easily anymore. And even though the situation itself hasn't fully settled your relationship to it, has begun to feel more defined, more real, more honest. There's a realization settling in that feels both steady and deeply personal. Like something inside you has finally found its place. Even if the outer situation hasn't fully caught up yet, it's not loud or overwhelming. It's more like a quiet inner alignment, like standing within something that feels whole, even if it came together piece by piece. You begin to recognize what truly holds value for you, not just in theory, but in how it feels to be part of it. What supports you, what feels lasting, what actually nourishes your sense of security. There's a sense of emotional completion here, like something forming into a full circle. Not because everything turned out exactly as expected, but because you can now see it clearly for what it is. You may notice a deeper calm in how you respond, like you're no longer searching for confirmation or clarity outside of yourself. It's already there, like something rooted beneath the surface, quietly stable. And even though parts of the situation may still be unfolding, your connection to it feels different now. More grounded, more honest, more aligned with what truly matters to you. There's something grounded underneath that sense of new potential. Something quieter than excitement. Tell me something about this beginning. What's really happening beneath it? Because it looks like an opportunity, like something stable, something real. But underneath, it's not rushing forward. It's not trying to prove anything. It's deliberate. This isn't just about something new appearing. It's about how you're choosing to approach it now. And this is where it becomes more specific. There's a shift in your pace, almost like moving step by step through shallow water, feeling each step before you take the next. You're no longer reaching for something just because it's there. You're evaluating it, sensing whether it aligns with what you've just come to understand about yourself. You might notice this in how you respond to new possibilities. You don't jump. You don't rush to invest. You stay present with it. It looks like caution. But underneath it's self-trust. This energy shows a deeper commitment, not to the situation, but to your own stability, to building something that actually holds, not something that feels intense for a moment and then slips away. And that changes everything about how this new beginning feels. Because now, it's not about escaping what just shifted. It's about choosing what's worth stepping into, slowly, intentionally, with full awareness. And that's a completely different kind of beginning. There's something cutting through that emotional fog now. Something that doesn't soften the truth, but defines it. What is this really showing us about that confusion? That uncertainty you've been sitting in because it looks like intuition, like sensing something without fully understanding it. But underneath there's a part of you that already knows exactly what this is. This isn't just about feeling your way through something unclear. It's about the moment where clarity arrives. And it doesn't ask for permission. And this is where it becomes more specific. There's a shift in how you think about the situation. Almost like a clean break in your perception, like a blade cutting through everything that was once blurred. You stop guessing. You stop filling in the gaps with hope or fear. You see it. You may notice this in the way your thoughts become more direct. No more overanalyzing. No more trying to interpret mixed signals. Just a quiet, firm understanding. It might even feel a little cold at first, like removing emotion from something that once felt overwhelming. But underneath it's not detachment. It's truth without distortion. This energy shows that what once felt confusing was never actually unclear. It was just layered with emotion, doubt, and avoidance. And now, that layer is being stripped back. Not gently, but cleanly. And once you see something this clearly, you can't return to not knowing. That's the shift that's happening here. And it's only just starting to reveal how much has been hidden in plain sight. There's a deeper layer to that sudden shift, something that didn't just happen out of nowhere. What is this actually showing us about that collapse, that moment where everything feels like it's being shaken? Because it looks like disruption, like something falling apart too fast. But underneath this has been building for a while. This isn't just about something breaking. It's about what you were holding on to, long after it stopped growing. And this is where it becomes more specific. There's a sense of realizing how much time, energy, emotion you kept investing, even when something wasn't giving back the same way. Almost like watching something you nurtured slowly lose its shape, but still hoping it would turn around. You might recognize this in yourself. Staying patient longer than you needed to, waiting for a shift that never quite came, convincing yourself it just needed more time. It looks like commitment, but underneath its difficulty, letting go of what you've already poured into it. And when that truth finally surfaces, it doesn't feel gentle. Because the shakeup isn't just external. It's the realization that you've already outgrown what you were trying to sustain. This is what makes the shift feel so intense. It's not just change. It's the awareness that something had already run its course. And now, it can't be held together the same way anymore. And that awareness, once it lands, it keeps unfolding in ways you can't ignore. There's something tender underneath this opening. Something that doesn't rush in the way you might expect. What is this really showing us about that emotional beginning? That sense of something new forming? Because it looks like a fresh start, like your heart opening again. But underneath, it's not coming from emptiness. It's coming from what you've already felt, already lost, already processed. This isn't just about new emotion arriving. It's about what's been quietly healing inside you. And this is where it becomes more specific. There's a sense of something slowly filling back up, like an hourglass turning where what once felt depleted begins to return in a different way. Not the same as before, not tied to the same expectations, but softer, more aware. You might recognize this in how you let yourself feel again. Not all at once, not without hesitation, but without shutting it down either. It looks like vulnerability, but underneath it's resilience. This energy shows that your heart didn't close. It adapted. It learned how to hold emotion without losing itself in it. And that changes what this new beginning actually is. Because it's not replacing what was lost. It's growing from it. And that's why it feels different, quieter, but more real than anything before. There's something subtle within that sense of stability, almost like it isn't as fully anchored as it appears. What is this really showing us about that feeling of security? That sense of something solid taking shape? Because it looks like fulfillment, like reaching a place that should feel complete, but underneath there's a slight disconnect. Something isn't landing the way it was expected to. This isn't just about having something stable. It's about how that stability actually feels to you. And this is where it becomes more specific. There's a sense of something hovering, like it should feel like home, but part of you is still adjusting to it, or questioning it. You might notice moments where everything looks right on the surface, but internally, you're not fully settled into it. You may recognize this in small reactions. Feeling present, but not fully relaxed. Being part of something, but still observing it. Wanting to trust it, but needing more time. It looks like hesitation, but underneath it's discernment. This energy shows that just because something appears stable or complete, doesn't mean it automatically aligns with you in the way you need it to. And that's important. Because now you're not just accepting what looks good or feels familiar. You're sensing whether it truly supports you. And that awareness, it keeps refining what stability really means for you. There's a quiet sense of reassurance settling in, almost like that still image of an owl, beneath a glowing moon, steady, watchful, not needing to interfere. You might notice how you're not reacting the same way you used to, especially in moments that once would have pulled you in emotionally. Instead of questioning everything or trying to fix it, there's this subtle shift where you just observe. You let things show themselves without rushing to understand them. It's not detachment, it's trust forming in a way that doesn't need constant confirmation. You may find yourself stepping back in conversations, choosing silence, where you once would have explained, or feeling less urgency to chase clarity, because something inside you already feels settled. Even in uncertainty, there's a sense that you don't need to control the outcome the way you used to. That awareness changes how you move, how you respond, how much you invest. It's quiet, but it's steady, like something within you knows it's supported even without proof. And that feeling, it's already shaping how you experience everything unfolding around you. There's a growing lightness in how you respond now, almost like those scattered drops of color on a blank space, where something softer keeps showing up in the same moments that used to feel heavy. You might catch yourself choosing ease without thinking about it, letting something go instead of holding on to it, not because you're forcing positivity, but because it genuinely doesn't feel worth the wait anymore. It shows up in small, repeated ways. Smiling to yourself instead of replaying a conversation, moving on from something without needing closure, feeling okay, not having the last word. The shift isn't dramatic, but it's consistent. You're not trying to control the outcome, and you're not pulled into the same emotional loops. There's a quiet preference for peace forming almost instinctively, like your energy naturally moves toward what feels lighter instead of what feels intense. Even when something could trigger you, it doesn't land the same way, it passes through quicker, like it doesn't have the same hold. And the more this repeats, the more natural it feels. Like you've started choosing something different without even realizing you're doing it. Something clicks in a very quiet way, like seeing those soft spreading blooms of color and suddenly realizing they've been forming the whole time without you forcing them. You start to recognize that this shift in you isn't random. It's not something that just happened overnight. It's been building every time you chose yourself in a small moment. Every time you didn't chase, every time you let something pass without attaching meaning to it. And now, it feels obvious. Your focus has changed. What you give your energy to has changed. You're not trying to hold on to what once mattered the same way because something deeper in you already redirected your attention. It's almost surprising when you notice it, how certain things don't pull at you anymore, how your mind doesn't go back to the same places. You're not denying anything. You've just outgrown where your energy used to go. And that realization feels steady, like something you don't need to question. It's clear in the way you move, in what you choose to engage with, in what you quietly let fall away. And once you see that pattern for what it is, it becomes impossible to unsee. There's a steadiness in how you respond now, almost like those soft star-speckled shapes settling into place where your reactions come from a clearer internal point instead of the situation itself. You might notice how quickly you decide what feels right for you without overthinking it, how you step away from something the moment it doesn't match how you want to feel. It's not something you're forcing. It happens before you even question it. Conversations end sooner, energy doesn't linger the same way, and you don't feel the need to explain your choices the way you once did. There's a quiet alignment in how you move, like your actions are naturally following something you've already accepted inside. Even when something familiar presents itself, it doesn't pull you back in the same way. Your response is different without you trying to make it different. It's subtle, but it's consistent, and it shows up in how easily you choose peace over engagement, clarity over confusion. The shift isn't something you're thinking about anymore. It's something you're already living, There's a quiet certainty in how your focus moves now, like those soft flowing lines settling downward, naturally finding where they belong without force. You're not trying to redirect your energy anymore. It just goes where it feels right. What once pulled your attention automatically doesn't hold it the same way, and you don't question that shift. You simply follow what feels clear. You didn't lose interest. You stopped investing in what didn't return it. You didn't force change. You just stopped feeding what was draining you. There's a calm in that, a kind of steadiness that doesn't need constant checking or reassurance. You move through things without gripping them, without needing them to define you or validate you. Even in moments that used to feel uncertain, there's a quiet sense of direction underneath it all, like you already know where your energy belongs. You're not searching the same way anymore. You're not reacting the same way anymore. You're not holding on to things the same way anymore. And that's the shift. It's already happening. It's already yours. Take what truly resonates with you and leave the rest. This reading is here to meet you where you are, not define your entire story. Some parts may feel deeply familiar, others might not, and that's completely okay. I appreciate you being here and sharing your time and energy in this space. If this message connected with you, you're always welcome back whenever you feel guided. Until then, trust your own pace and stay grounded in what feels real for you.